Hi, everyone. Compelling evidence, if you look into it, especially from resources such as the National Center for School Safety, suggests that open and active communication between school officials and families about school safety is essential to creating a supportive educational environment. In addition to reducing anxiety, such communications can build trust, improve attendance, and even promote academic success. We'll be learning about how one administrator approaches communication with stakeholders about safety in today's Teaching Matters.
Welcome to Teaching Matters, a podcast exploring all things teaching and learning. Teaching Matters is produced by NPR affiliate WOUB Public Media in Athens, Ohio. And here is your host, Dr. Scott Titsworth, Dean of the Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University.
All right, thank you, Trinity. Today we're speaking with Dr. Tahira DuPree Chase. She's the superintendent of schools for the Westbury Union Free School District in Old Westbury, New York. She has held that position for 4 years. That district has implemented a crisis alert badge notification system that allows for crisis notifications and tracking to promote school safety in response to a variety of crisis situations. Tahira, thank you so much for your time being on the podcast today. It's great to have the opportunity to meet you.
It's an honor to be here, and thank you for even inviting me to be a part of this.
It's such an important topic, and of course, it's so easy to focus on the headlines, and the headlines are, every time they come out, they're atrocious and causes a lot of pain, a lot of sadness. But it's also important to think about some of the positive ways that safety can be integrated into a culture. Before we get into that, though, can you kind of talk about some of your background? What in your professional career led you into education? And most importantly, for right now, you're in the role of superintendent. What led you into that part of the field?
So I would say education is probably the best profession anyone can get into today, because you truly do shape tomorrow, really do. But, I didn't always set out to be an educator. Actually, my dream job was to be a news reporter, to go into public relations, right? And so upon graduating from undergrad, I did land a really amazing job working with Time Warner, and I worked with one of their subsidiary public relation firms. And, we were in the midst of, doing some public relations for some pretty high profile celebrities. But that position didn't really give me the burn in the belly that I was looking for. And one day I just decided to quit my job, fresh out of college, quit my job. Like, what crazy person does that? A 21-year-old. So in realizing that I didn't have a job, quit my job, a friend of ours, family friend of ours said, well, why don't you become a substitute teacher until you figure things out? And I did just that in 1994. I became a substitute teacher, and I figured it out. Within 15 minutes, I fell in love. I got that burning desire that I was looking for. Fast forward for the past, 31 years now? I've held different positions in public education, just about every position leading up to the superintendency. But here's what I recognize. Although I didn't go into news and public affairs and public relations the way I thought I would, everything that I do as a superintendent for the last 12 years as a superintendent surrounds itself with public relations, communications, right? And being an effective communicator. So it's just really a full circle. Love what I do. It's one of the best jobs in America. It's one of the wildest and craziest jobs. It's forever changing. Whenever the world changes, we change with it. But I couldn't think of doing anything else at this time.
Two things about what you just said really speaks to my heart. First of all, I'm a communication dean, so the fact that you are championing communication, of course, is very important to me. But also in my family, myself, my wife, and now my daughter are all educators. And, we talk over the dinner table. Of course, Emma's left the house, but when she comes back for dinner on occasion, we just talk about how this is, pardon the expression, it's really God's work to be in a classroom with students and to be able to just be part of their lives. And it's not that every day is a rose, but every day you have a chance for it to be, and that's always exciting. Can you talk a little bit about what Westbury is like in the school district that you're leading right now?
Sure. Westbury is an amazing school district. We are comprised of a little bit under 5,000 beautiful scholars from pre-K through 12. We are a very diverse community, with the majority of my scholars who identify as Latinx. We are a district of color, 98% of color. Most of my scholars qualify for free and reduced, and what that means is that many of my scholars live below what is considered to be the poverty line, whatever that may mean. So they do qualify for free and reduced lunch. with that, we still graduate 91% of our scholars. We still have an international baccalaureate program in our school district and some of the most world-class programs imaginable, and our students thrive. We're doing amazing things with STEAM and STEM in our school district. As far as technology and moving with the time and preparing our scholars for positions that don't yet exist, we are definitely at the forefront and leading that effort. So it's an amazing place. I work with a 7-member board, and most of them are alum. So there's a different type of approach to the work that we do here, and it's really hard work that we do here. We have a great community, a very supportive, trusting community, and we don't take that trust for granted. And so it's important that we keep these kids safe, loved. We instill joy while they're learning here at Westbury School District.
And geographically, where are you located?
Geographically, we are in the state of New York. We are about 25 miles from New York City. We're on Long Island in Nassau County.
Ah, very good. So one of the things when I was reading about your school, you champion safety as being part of the culture of the school. We oftentimes hear about school culture as, being about sports teams. We hear about it being about academic excellence. We hear about, having students be able to have interpersonal relations. Those are things you typically hear about culture. Why do you think it's so important for safety to be an element of culture?
Well, we are all those things that you described. We're all those things. Athletics is super important. The arts is super important. Of course, the academics, the social emotional aspect. But I will never be able to achieve those things, Scott, if I don't have safety and security. If my babies do not feel safe coming to school, I won't have these things. And so it's important for us to instill joy. But part of that is when kids feel safe, when they feel loved and they feel cared for, and they are part of the safety and security procedures in the school district. It is the single most important thing that a superintendent has to worry about is safety and security. Yes, we're responsible for, the budget. Yes, we're responsible for academic. Yes, we're responsible for the social aspect. But our key responsibility is keeping not only our scholars safe, but our staff and faculty and our families safe in the school district.
Of course, many people, when they hear initially about the topic school safety, they immediately go to the headlines, and it's hard not to, obviously. But school safety is a broader issue than just what we see in the headlines, right?
Oh, it absolutely is. So there's different types of safety when we think about school safety. So let's unpack. There's physical safety, making sure that I'm not harmed. But there's also the emotional safety, right? And then there's the social safety in the school district. And so we're responsible for all of those aspects of safety in a school district. And it is important that children feel safe when they come to school. When they feel safe coming to school, it increases your attendance. It retains the students. You garner the trust from your community, the trust of your parents. You retain staff and faculty because they are in a safe teaching environment, a safe work environment. So safety is just about it's about everything that we do here. We do it from the perspective of, is this safe for staff? Is this safe for our scholars?
When you're thinking about how you communicate that message to your different stakeholders, you've obviously said that you had communication in your background, and so what are some of the strategies that you've employed, both yourself and across your district, to really get that message out there so that it's part of the vocabulary of your scholars and their families?
Sure, that's a great question. And when we think about communication, typically people think, well, I put it in a memo, everyone should have read it, they got it. That no longer works. What I recognize is that people communicate in different ways. I have a wide range of age groups of parents and guardians in our school district. We also have different languages spoken in our school district. We have a multilingual community. And so it's important that there's equity in how we communicate with people and that everyone gets the message in the way in which they receive information. So we have leveraged social media. We have face-to-face. The good old-fashioned face-to-face works, right? We share information at our board meetings. We do newsletters. Like I said, we leverage social media. We have student ambassadors who are part of my superintendent student advisory council. These are students who come to me and they share with me monthly things that are going on. I share with them. I get feedback from them. They get feedback from me. They take it back to their peers, right? I bring it back to the administrators and to the board. That two-way communication is so very important. We have leveraged surveys in our school district, surveys using artificial intelligence to ensure that we cast a wide net when we want feedback from our families, and not just the families who can come out to a meeting at 7 o'clock, but also to that mom who has 3 jobs and just can't make it to that meeting, but she can take 5 minutes to open up her phone to answer a survey, and her voice matters and her voice will count. So we use so many different modalities. And what we're also cognizant of is the different languages that exist in our school district. And that is growing. The population is definitely changing in our school district. So we've leveled platforms, software, where we can communicate with families, and the software represents about 70 somewhat different languages, and the family members can put in the language in which they want to receive the message, and my message comes to them in their language. And things like that is so very important to communicate with folk and to ensure that you have a wide range of communication platforms to reach a wide range of individuals, because it's not just my parents, it's also this greater community that exists out here who are my taxpayers, right? And so it's important that they know what's happening in the schools. It's important that the local realtors know what happens in the schools. Why? Because they have to sell homes here, and it's important that they have accurate information about what exists in our school district. And so, like I said, we use so many different ways to communicate, and what we believe is over-communicating, Scott. We believe in over-communicating, and sometimes you might get the same message 4 or 5 different ways, 4 or 5 different times, but it's okay. That's what works for us here at Westbury.
When you're in your position and you're thinking about sort of a multi-layered strategy for safety, the type of one that any district should, hopefully be putting into their safety plan, how do you make decisions about not just the communication, but there's also a technology component? There is a multi-layered security, sort of barrier component, if you will. Obviously, the badges are a component of that. Yeah. How do you start putting your strategy together, as a district to really try to cover the bases that will be most important for you?
Part of communication is listening. And listening is a really important component of communication. It's more than just speaking and just giving, but it's also receiving, right? We listen to the people who are boots on the ground and what it is they need. That's really important. I remember about 3 years ago where I led a committee of educators, and they were talking about these badges, didn't necessarily have a name, but they talked about these badges where it empowers everyone in the building to be a part of all things safety and security. And so we did our research on those badges, and we found, a company that meets the needs of Westbury School District in terms of those badges. It was important that not only was that decision about that made at the beginning listening portion, but as we began to implement, bringing different parties and different constituents to the table. So we brought our union leadership to the table to make sure that they understood. So we're talking about union leadership from food service to safety and security, our custodians, our facilities, our administrators, our teachers, just so that everyone had an opportunity to learn about what we can possibly become as a district with these badges and how it works, and to dispel any rumors that there may be. Because typically, what do employees do? They go to their union leadership. So I wanted to empower the union leadership, make them part of our safety and security ambassadors when we are implementing something new so that we don't have the hiccups, and also to be able to make them feel as if they're part of the decision process, and not just feel it, but that they become that, and that they bring information back to me in areas in which we can improve and make the implementation better. I will say communicating in that way, Scott, was really successful. We didn't have any issues with the implementation from the variety of staff that exist in our school district because we communicated early on. We made them part of the implementation plan. We asked all the right questions. We received feedback, implemented much of what they've asked us to implement and how to implement in terms of staggering it and how it should be distributed. And no issues, no grievances, no pushback, no issues. Everyone knew what they had to do. We talked about what the training should look like for the different employees, those who are night employees, those who are day employees. We took all of those things into consideration. I could not have done that from my office alone. I could not have done that just with my cabinet. I needed to go out to those who are boots on the ground to ask them what was the best way to implement this and how could this work. And I will tell you, it was a magnificent implementation.
How long have you had the technology in your school?
So we started in February of 2025.
As you think back, relatively recent, when you implemented it then, as you think back, what were some of the most important highlights of things that ended up resonating as the training process unfolded? In other words, if another district was going to implement a similar type of badge-based technology, are there certain takeaways that you would recommend based upon the experiences that you all had?
Communicate with everyone. Leave no staff member behind, from the bus to the food service to your current security staff to your facilities, your maintenance, to even the clerical. Don't leave anyone behind because everyone has to be a part of this communication. Everyone has to be a part of the security and safety of our students. Everyone has a badge. And so it's important that you include everyone. And also, too, you want to make sure that your technology department is in place. Technology is so important. You can't have failure in technology. And you have to also make sure that you have the infrastructure to support this. Centegix was very good with us in terms of communicating what our needs were. We did a needs assessment to make sure that we could host this particular platform, and it really worked out to our favor, and it worked out well.
How many buildings do you have, by the way?
We have 6 buildings, and we also have 2 administration buildings.
As going back to the culture question, since you've had this in place, you've started a new academic year, as you're walking around now, what are some of the tangible things that you see where you're like, okay, this message is taking hold and these badges are having an impact in the way that people are operating that's positive?
Yeah, so we're all wearing the badge. We wear it behind our ID badge. Our ID badges are required. Therefore, the Centegix badge is required. When I walk around, it is highly visible, the Centegix badge. Everyone has it. You'll hear comments. In fact, I was just in a meeting before meeting with you, Scott. I just left a facilities meeting, and we are talking about enhancing our facilities to add more security to our windows in light of what just happened in Minnesota. We're having those conversations with our facilities committee, and someone says, well, no window is completely bulletproof, but you know what? There are some bullet resistant windows, and at least that will hold an active shooter while we're pressing our Centegix badge, waiting for. Those are the conversations that we're having, where we're including our existing security mechanisms into the conversation, and people can see how useful this has been. We thank God here at Westbury, we haven't had to use the Centegix badge for, anything catastrophic or tragic. We did have a couple of hiccups where people pressed it one too many times. And if you press it more than 8 times, you'll have the whole SWAT team come. And that did happen. It was an accident. In fact, one teacher was so involved with her kindergarten students, and she was bending over and she had it around her neck, and the kids were like, what's that? And they're pressing it. And then all of a sudden we had everyone come out. But that was a test run for us. And although it was a mistake on our part, we used that mistake as an opportunity. Because this opportunity did demonstrate for us that we are now connected to Nassau County Homeland Security. And if we press it to lock down the school, they will be here within minutes. If you press it 3 times, the administration team, the leadership team, the security team will be deployed to a particular classroom. Exact of where the Centegix badge was pressed is where they will go. That has happened, and typically it happened in our school district for health reasons. We had a 5-year-old who choked. The teacher performed CPR, but the teacher aide pressed, and we were there to provide support to the child. We had another child who fainted. So we had things like that where it really demonstrate that it was a useful tool to get the educator the help he or she may need in the classroom, and they get immediate attention.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories, that one of the benefits is when you have these other types of emergency situations that are not the most significant. Just being able to press the button and have a response, but being able to control the situation without having to think about that
Right.
is a big psychological safety factor for everyone.
Scott, it's empowering.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to the conversation I had with a group of educators from all of my buildings. And to be empowered, to have that safety and security empowerment at the palm of your hands, it's just amazing. And how do you think that makes this teacher feel? Or how do you think it makes this custodian feel, or this clerical staff feel? It makes them feel safe in their work environment. Last year there were over 300 school shootings that were reported in the nation. Reported. Think about, and from what I was told is that they're reported when it's more than 2 people being shot. So if it's just one, can you imagine how many there were in schools, right?
Right.
But to empower people who are under your care with a simple tool where they can press a button to get help during a panic situation makes you feel that we truly are a family and that they are truly cared for when they come to work every day. And I think that's what has retained staff in our school district. We're not a school district where, we're short of staff and there's teacher shortages. We don't have that issue in our school district. Thank God we don't. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people feel safe coming to work and that we're listening to people and they are part of the process for keeping everyone safe and secure while here at Westbury.
Have you had conversations with parents about it yet?
Absolutely. So we informed our parents on what we have. We did a demonstration of this at a board meeting because our board meetings are typically recorded. And so parents can watch it over and over and over and over and over and over again, which they have for that particular meeting. We've noticed that. And we've definitely communicated with our parents what we have. And every time we enhance security in our school district, we let our families know. And we let our families know that their children are so important to us and that we're taking these safety measures. I have to also give my board a shout out because, when I talk about these safety measures, of course, everyone wants to know, well, what does it cost? And my board's attitude is you can't put a price on safety. Do what you need to do to keep us safe. Do what you need to do to make us feel that we have everything possible to keep us safe. And so it's working here.
In the long term, as you think about the continued evolution, how do you have the technology in place. It's a new thing and still relatively new given that it started last winter. How do you keep propagating that message? In other words, it becomes routine after a while. And safety is something that can't really become routine because it always has to sort of be at the forefront of people's thoughts. So have you given your own thought to how you keep pushing that message in a way that admittedly for you seems like it's really a positive message about caring for our people? How do you keep doing that in a way that keeps it fresh and sort of a recycling, type of mentality?
Yeah. So whenever I communicate to our families, to our staff, we always talk about safety and security being the paramount priority, being our most pressing priority. And we say it as emphatically as I just say it. And even if I'm writing a memo to my families about, welcome back to school, I'm always putting a safety component in there. I'm always speaking about safety. My principals are always speaking about some aspect of safety in every communication that we send out. Because what that message pretty much says is that safety is our priority. And even if we're talking about academics, we add some safety component to the discussion. Our mantra here is that we're here for kids. And so being here for kids is keeping kids safe, keeping kids healthy, and keeping kids happy and joyous. And that's what we're committed to here at Westbury School District. And we communicate that in everything that we do here.
The last question, I find it really interesting that when you look at some of the data on implementing technologies like Syntegix and others, that you see benefits in student learning. And you can connect those dots in your mind, but have you started to see evidence of the fact that that attendance is increasing, or that you have other evidence of student success that, it would be hard at this point to say it's directly related, obviously, but anecdotally, are you starting to see any of that?
So I will share this. At the end of last year, in our school district, we had the presence of ICE in our school district. I am lucky and blessed enough to lead a very diverse school district where, there are children in our school district who may not have necessarily, their families weren't born here. And so there was a presence of ICE. And in other school districts around the nation, when that presence was noticed, there was a precipitous drop in attendance. But at Westbury School District, we kept reiterating to our families that our schools are safe. They're the safest place our kids could be. And the first day, there was a drop, but you better believe, Scott, those babies came back to school the next day, and they have been here. And in my conversation with my scholars through my Super SAC, I always ask them, how do you feel? Do you guys feel safe here? Every kid will say, we feel safe here. To hear that from your end user, that's all I need.
Yeah.
How many times do we ask the end user, how do you feel? And when kids can articulate, they feel safe, they feel cared for, we've done our jobs here, right? And so the kids will tell you that, our scholars will tell you, we feel safe at Westbury, we feel great here. And our parents trust us. I opened up the conversation with saying that we have a trusting community. Our parents trust us, and they trust that what we bring to the school district is in the best interest of their children and their families. And so, I'm never going to say that we have anything that's 100% because nothing is 100%, Scott, you know that. But what I will say is that we are making our best effort to keep everyone safe, secure, and informed.
Tahira, it's been wonderful to get to know you. And I just have to say that I appreciate the fact that you're able to sort of confront something that is as serious as school safety, but to do so in a positive way. I mean, you're really doing it because of the values that you have in supporting your students and your staff and your faculty, members of your community. I really appreciate that. And I think I think for any administrator, that's a hard balancing act to say we have to take this seriously, but to not make it a downer. I just commend you on that.
Thank you. I mean, it's never a pleasant conversation when you talk about the what if, and when you hear these horrific stories on the news, you kind of clutch your stomach, and if I may say this, you pray, for the victims, and also pray that, this never happens to you. And you begin looking at your safety and security protocols and procedures. In our school district, what we did, and I hope I have enough time to talk about this.
Absolutely, yeah.
We actually was bold enough to undergo a very rigorous safety audit. We enlisted a team called the School Safety Advocacy Council. And they are a renowned team to go around school districts throughout America to do a safety audit where we actually identify where our threats are and where our risks are, where our opportunities are, and then what we're doing well. I wasn't really interested in what we were doing well. I was interested in what were those threats, what were those risks. And so we took a big leap in just exposing ourselves to say, I want to know everything. Don't just go to that part. I want you to go all over the district and tell us where we are exposed. And we received this huge booklet report on all the things that we were doing well, but all the other recommendations, and we've been implementing it ever since. And so the other advisement that I would give any school district is to undergo an audit of your safety and security. Listen to the experts. I'm a school superintendent. After the PR piece, I went back to school to learn how to be an administrator, but, this on the job, but we didn't really focus too much on safety and security. And the world has changed since I did all of that work, right? Yeah. And the world is constantly evolving, and we have to evolve with the world. But we don't always think about what our exposures are, and we're not always willing to hear what they are. We were willing to hear what they are, and we were willing to hear what the solutions could possibly be. and we just went full speed ahead with it. That was probably one of the best things we could have done.
Yeah, and of course, this is an issue where one size does not fit all, right?
Yes,
I mean, the audit, whatever that ends up being for a school district, is going to be very unique to their situation, what their buildings are like, the community that they're in,
Yes.
all those things that would go into that. And so I agree, and I think that is something that, at least in the state of Ohio, I feel like, from what I'm understanding, districts are going through that process. And in fact, even in my daughter's district, they're talking about technologies like what you've described as being one of the solutions that they're working towards. But of course, as you said, you have to know what your gaps are first and then figure out how to solve them.
You have to know what your gaps are first, and you have to be honest about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those gaps aren't a reflection of your lack of leadership. Identifying those gaps is a strength in leadership.
Yeah,
You can look
yeah.
at yourself and say, okay, we need to make these changes for the betterment of the people we serve. And so we did that at Westbury. We had an honest discussion about where we're lacking and how we can fill those gaps. And we're working really hard to make sure that we fill the gaps. And again, nothing is 100%.
Yeah.
But boy, if I can get to 98.9, if I can get to 99.9, then, I would have served my community well.
Tahira, I wish you a very uplifting school year.
Thank you.
And I hope that your students have a fantastic experience in the classes. I'm sure that they will.
Thank you.
With someone that's dynamic as you, providing leadership. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure talking with you. I wish we had more conversation about this.
Absolutely. My guest today has been Dr. Tahira DuPree Chase. She is the superintendent of schools for the Westbury Union Free School District. If you'd like to learn more about her or her district, we'll have links in the text accompanying the podcast, and also a link to Syntagix, which is the company that Tahira described, that provides the Beacon ID alert technologies that she was talking about. So you can learn more about that. Thank you for listening to Teaching Matters. Also, special thanks to the associate producers April Koska and Trinity Sweet for doing all the work behind the scenes to make this work. We hope that everyone has a great day.